Good morning and welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Happy Halloween this morning. Appreciate you joining us. If you're watching this live on Facebook, appreciate that. If you're listening to it or watching it later on our website, we appreciate that as well. Remember, if you ever miss one of these shows, you can find them at www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. We have audio and video versions there for your consumption at a later date. The news is also on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are also, once a week in print and, of course, online, as we mentioned. 3 podcasts coming at you already. We're going to have a 4th over the weekend. Yesterday, we sat down with Mr. Jason Art, our sheriff, to discuss the Perkins situation. We'll get into that in a minute. We also sat down with Mr. Greg Spears early in the morning. That was our show yesterday. You can check that one out at your earliest convenience if you want to go back and watch that show. He and I also did a podcast, long form, talked a lot more in depth about some of the things he had to say. He's running for Bessie District 6. That will be released on Friday. Coming out at noon today, football show. Sat down with Mr. Rob Yarman and Mr. William Weathers. Talked about we're getting real close to playoffs time. 2 weeks left. Still a lot on the line for these teams. You can check that out again. It will be rolling out around noon at that URL I mentioned, www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. Getting into your traffic and weather. Cold, nasty, bad traffic. That is one of the reasons I'm late this morning. I do apologize. Took me a while to get here. Heavy delays on I-12 westbound heading into Baton Rouge. Pretty much intermittent but heavy from Airline Highway all the way to Denham Springs and then total backup to Jubin. That's also causing 190 in Jubin to back up. Folks trying to get off Burgess after dropping their kids off at Walker, having trouble getting on 447. Also delays at 447 and 1025, which is Arnold Road. Heavy delays on 64 as well. That tells you that it's just a rough day for travel. Heavy delays 190 4H Club Road and River Road. There it is. So it's going to be a rough travel day for you this morning, folks. I do apologize for that. It's also cold and rainy. It's currently 43 degrees. It's going to get up to 58. Some kind of wintry type weather here as that cold front came through, continuing to get rain throughout the day. Supposed to move out later this evening. Looking at a 37 for an overnight low. So please bundle up. Get your animals bundled up or bring them inside. Prepare for that. Not quite freezing, but it's going to be metaphorically freezing, so to speak. With that being said, the rain is supposed to move out this evening. Trunk or treat is still on for tonight. We talked to the parish councilman yesterday specifically, Mr. Gary Frog Talbert and Mr. R.C. Bubba Harris. They both confirmed that it will be on from 6 to 8 p.m. with a car decoration contest at 7 p.m. 6 to 8 p.m. are also the times for trick-or-treating tonight throughout Livingston Parish. That's Denham, Walker, Watson, Livingston, Springfield, Albany, French Settlement, Coyell, anywhere you're going out and doing trick-or-treating. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. So please be mindful of those times when you're going out. And, some people may leave the light on a little later to give you a chance, but for the most part, it's going to be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. tonight. Learned a little bit more about the Denny and Cynthia Perkins scenario yesterday. Mr. Perkins had his 313 hearing. He will be held without bail. His preliminary hearing is December 19th, whereas hers, Ms. Cynthia Perkins, is November 7th. Her 313 hearing was on Monday. Both are being held at present without bail or bond set. Excuse me. Pardon me. Sheriff Jason Ard, as mentioned, sat down with us yesterday after he had a press conference at roughly 10 a.m. talking about some rumors that were on social media and that sort of thing. He wanted to try to move the ball forward and focus more on the investigation of these two folks. How it can be trying to move into more of a recovery mode, a healing mode, trying to figure out how to prevent something like this from happening again. We will post that full interview. It was about 16 minutes. He and I sat down on this live video. If you want to go back and watch it, again, it's also at www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. So you can go check that out. There, he walked through about 4 or 5 of the rumor scenarios and had some pretty good answers for them. So you can check that out, please. Already talked about trunk or treat. A reminder that the parish council in November and December have moved their meetings up a week. There was an extra Thursday in October, so there was not missing a 2-week gap in between, but there will be a long break from the second meeting in December until the first meeting in January. That second meeting in December will be on the 19th. Excuse me. And then there will not be a parish council meeting until Thursday, January 9th. So please keep that in mind. It'll be the 7th and the 14th, in November, and then the 19th and the 5th in December. Those are all Thursdays. So please keep that in mind. Remember that early voting starts this Saturday. We already talked with Mr. Greg Spears. Yesterday, we will be talking with Mr. Brian Abels, who is running for 21st Judicial District, Division D, court judge. Got it all there. There's a lot of D's in there. He and I will be sitting down on this morning show tomorrow at 7 a.m. to talk a little bit more about himself. If you'll remember, he was on the show before the primary elections. And he is in a runoff with Ernie Drake for that seat. And again, Mr. Spears is in a runoff with Mr. Ronnie Morris for his the Bessie district seat. So a couple of runoffs. There's several others, including House District 71 between Buddy Mincy Jr. and Lori Calais. Parish Council District 6 between Gerald McMorris and Derek Babcock. And then the governor's race, of course. It's against Mr. Eddie Risponi, a Republican, against Mr. John Bell Edwards, a Democrat. And then statewide, again, Secretary of State, Mr. Kyle Ardenway, a Republican, versus Ms. Gwen Collins Greenup, a Democrat. So will be interesting to see how all those pan out. Remember, early voting starts November 2nd, this Saturday, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day but Sunday. Sunday, November 3rd, you cannot early vote. You can go to the Livingston Walker Branch Library, right not far from our office here, or you can go to the Registrar of Voters office in Livingston. Of course, casting your early vote, you will be using a digital screen now. Very quick, very easy. Go ahead and knock it out. Had a record for early voting turnout for the primary race after nearly over double what came out for early voting in 2015. So it will be interesting to see how that pans out. There were no breaks. Usually in the real estate market, after from about April to August, it stays hot, and then school starts and things slow down tremendously. That wasn't the case this year. That high swing where almost 1,200 homes were sold from April to, August continued. Wherein 185 homes were sold in September, getting well over that average home price of $200,000, and almost 50 more homes sold this September than there were in September 2018. So the market continued to stay hot, moving even well out of those summer months. It was announced the other day, and I told y'all yesterday on the morning show with Mr. Greg Spears, it was going to be a long one today. It was announced earlier this week. The Southside Mega Campus has finally gotten their wetlands designation all taken care of. They're waiting for one more FEMA certification before they can move forward. According to Superintendent Joe Murphy, they're looking at a let date for bids in January, with construction starting in the late winter or early spring of 2020. The goal is to have Southside open just like Denham Elementary for the 2021-2022 school year. You're looking at about an 18-month construction cycle for both schools. Denham Elementary will be ready a little bit earlier than Southside, but both are expected to be open and welcoming students back for the 2021-2022 school year. So that was good news to catch. We discussed in Thursday's paper, so the feature for today is how are school construction determined? A lot of questions popped up as we here at the news discussed the new Denham Springs Elementary, and I use new loosely there, as well as the Southside Elementary and Junior High Mega Campus. Where did these come from? It's important to understand, too, that both of those campuses are not normal construction. First and foremost, they are both covered under FEMA and HUD grants. So it's 100% funding. So it was very much a decision by the administration and the school board members from Denham. Do we just want to rebuild these buildings up to code but keep them about how they were, or do we want to build 21st century schools? And they went with option B. And now all of a sudden you're looking at about 55 for Southside. It's about 55 million total value. For Denham Springs Elementary, somewhere around 20 million in total value, and an increase in real estate holdings for the school at no cost to the school. If there's anything over that, the Denham Springs School District will cover it, and that's what the feature discusses. We're talking about any kind of construction that occurs for a school is completely and totally based on the taxpayers and the funding from that district. So all the school districts have their own boundaries. They don't match parish council districts. They don't match rec districts. They have their own. And, Denham is, of course, the largest geographically. It also has the most taxable value in terms of real estate. So what determines how these schools are built is usually how much tax comes from those areas. There are 3 taxes. There's a construction tax, a maintenance tax, as well as what's called the second sales tax, which is $0.015 that go into the coffers in these areas. Well, sales taxes, all 3 of those taxes stay in the area in which they were collected. So, of course, Denham, Walker, and Watson automatically have an advantage. Now, the second thing that Denham, Walker, and Watson have are millages that were placed on the buildings in their district, on the structures in their district. They then took that revenue stream and bonded it out. That's how Live Oak got a new school. That's how Walker got a new high school. That's how Live Oak got those ball fields. They come from bonded revenue or bonded, monies on that revenue stream of tax dollars. So those are extra millages, okay? So they have those in Denham, Walker, and Watson. They have the normal 3 tax bases plus an extra millage. And those millages were bonded out for school construction. For instance, the one in Denham Springs went towards Juban Park Junior High and Juban Park Elementary. So anything that they bond out for construction is usually based on those extra millages that those places are paying. There was a lot of controversy surrounding a failed vote in 2016 on tax extra millages in Springfield and Albany for new schools. A lot of folks talking about the Springfield property tax was only going to be based on a few homeowners, not all of them. Some people weren't able to vote, that sort of thing. But Springfield and Albany both declined a extra millage for schools in 2016. Will be interesting to see if that comes back to light as these new schools open in Denham Springs. If officials and school board members in Albany and Springfield don't push for another millage. Keep an eye on that. But we will be we'll be bringing up a lot of numbers and things like that in a long form podcast coming out over the weekend where we'll get into much more depth on how that worked. But it is important to remember that the Southside Mega Campus and Denham Springs Elementary have nothing to do with the normal construction process for a new school in Livingston Parish. They are both based completely on flood recovery. They were both substantially damaged, required to be demolished by FEMA, and then FEMA covered 90% and HUD covered 10%. Anything over that approved amount will be covered by the Denham Springs portion of the school board and those funds. So please remember that. Please remember that distinction. Again, we will have a podcast coming out about that where we'll discuss a lot of it, a little more in depth coming up over the weekend. We've been packed. Mr. Brian Abels, we're going to try to get him in sometime before early voting starts on Saturday, but it's a packed slate this week. So Denham Springs recently approved the renovation of their new city hall. They'll begin moving out in early November. The mayor did want to stress that the city hall will remain open for business. And just in the early onset, there may be some, and throughout construction, there may be pieces moving hither, thither, and yon as they try to pull this all together to make it into a more appropriate city hall with better means of entry, more clear means of entry, a better setup, improving the court area and improving the court area and the city council area, combining them into into a room that's more like double the size and a little better for a city council meeting, a little more appropriate if things get a little crowded. And they might actually be able to fit all the inmates in, or all of the people coming for court date. They're not all inmates. Some people just come for court. And right now they're having problems with that. That was a $1.37 million bid from Sienna Construction. That renovation is part of Denham Springs agreeing to demolish Old City Hall, the old street department, as well as the old administrative building for the fire department, and receiving funds from FEMA for turning those over as green space. Now, what is green space when we're talking about demolition of buildings with regard to FEMA? That means that that land is taken out of what you would call commerce, I guess. It no longer pays property tax. You cannot build on it without a resolution from the United States Congress. So Congress would have to take that individual piece of land, or you'd probably have to wait until several pieces wanted to be put back into commerce, and then at which point Congress would vote on it. Kind of an interesting scenario there. Walker sent out their, excuse me, I'm having trouble this morning. Must be all that cold air coming in. Walker sent out their seniors in style last night with a big sweep of Ascension Christian and volleyball, so congratulations to those ladies. The Literacy and Technology Center, recently redid a bus into a fully functional ambulance, which they'll be showing off to the other pieces of the Livingston Parish Public Schools over the coming weeks. They'll be visiting, and there are a lot of nursing or pre-nursing students there at the Literacy and Technology Center, and they'll be going around showing people, and this is what CPR is, this is what it's like to be on a, going to a home visit, that kind of thing. So it should be interesting. That was just rolled out a few days ago. Mr. David Gray got you on that story. One more time, please remember that Trunk or Treat is still on. Trick-or-treating hours tonight from 6 to 8 p.m. Trunk or Treat falls within that as well. It also has a car decorating show starting at 7 p.m. Where you can compete in the, if you dressed up your car, you get to compete for a prize. One more time, your traffic's only gotten worse as things have moved on throughout the day. Pretty solid delays from Airline all the way back to Juban Road. Solid delays on 4-H Club Road, 190, and River Road in Denham Springs. Heavy delays on 64 heading into Central, as well as delays on 16 as folks are heading out of Watson, and delays at Burgess and 447 as that final traffic, folks dropping their kids off at Walker High School, head on out. Please also remember it's going to get cold tonight. It's currently about 43 degrees. 57 is your high. 58 is your high. 1 degree there. 37 going to be your overnight low heading into Friday. Please remember to, take care. Pipes probably won't freeze. Not quite getting down to freezing temperatures, but please take care of your pets, any plants or anything outside. It is going to get very cold tonight. One last time, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you joining us this morning on the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. We will be back at you tomorrow morning. Again, Mr. Brian Abels will be joining us on this show. You can find these at www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. That's also where our long-form podcasts are as well. We are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We're also online, as mentioned, and we are once a week in print on Thursdays. Hope you can stay dry today. Hope you can stay warm, and we will catch you tomorrow morning. Thanks, and have a great day.